Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for that wave, Flame. I appreciate it. Welcome. Good morning to those who are gathered here in the sanctuary and to all who are joining us online today. We'll begin this morning with a musical prelude by Scott DeVoe. Nice. Thank you, Scott. There were a couple of pauses in there where I started to get up and I had to sit back down. So that was really wonderful. Thank you, Scott. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Charlottesville. My name is Reverend Tim Temerson. My pronouns are he and him, and I'm pleased to be leading worship this morning with the fabulous Scott DeVoe, as well as two of our members, Meg Dunham and Keith McGlamory. This sanctuary was built over 70 years ago on the homeland of the Monacan people and was once cared for by enslaved people from Africa and their descendants. We honor all who have dwelt here and all in our congregations whose lives led to this moment of our gathering. I invite us now to take a moment to greet others. Those online may unmute and say hello, and those here in the sanctuary or in the social hall, greet your neighbors, especially those you may not know.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Happy Father's Day to everybody.
Offer a special welcome to newcomers and invite you to join us for fellowship after the service in the social hall. Please feel free to use one of our red coffee mugs, which are for newcomers, and UUCville members and friends are reminded to offer a warm welcome to anyone with a red mug. Please also stop by the connections table near the monitor in the social hall, where you'll find all kinds of interesting information about our congregation, about Unitarian Universalism. There's also seating in the social hall where we have a live stream of the service. Of course, everyone is welcome and invited to be in this space, but if you need a roomier space, the social hall is a good option. Many thanks to all the folks helping us share worship both here and online, the greeters, the ushers, the hospitality, the popcorn and coffee makers, the logistics team, and of course, the fabulous Rachel Buckland up in our AV booth supporting the dual platform worship online and here on Rugby Road. And now we have greetings from board member Renee Brett.
Good morning. Welcome, everyone. Great to see everyone here this morning on Father's Day. And I just am really energized from our meeting last week. And I would just like to say thank you to Haley and Jimmy, who are our outgoing board members, and also welcome to Sylvie and Tammy Wilt, who are incoming board members. So I look forward to working with them in the coming year. Yeah, so just wanted to say welcome. Oh, I noticed a Pittsburgh name tag, and just so you know, my husband and I have Pittsburgh near and dear to our heart. So if you want to chat, we'll be in the social hall afterwards. Welcome. Thank you.
Yes. Lee, right? And you're from visiting from First Unitarian Pittsburgh. First Unitarian Universalist, and you're a longtime UU. Yeah. Just join. Yeah. For those of you on Zoom, Lee said he's been a UU, started in Charlotte, and just received one piece of advice, which is don't join any committees. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here. So here are our announcements this morning. Last Sunday's pizza fundraiser for our high school youth service trip to Appalachia raised a total of $314. This congregation really knows how to eat pizza, I'll tell you. And thank you all for supporting our youth, and see Beth Jager Landis if you want to help make sure those same youth, when they go to Appalachia, have plenty of snacks to take with them. And there's a sign-up form to say what kind of snacks you can provide. Parents, please remember to register your children for the Sunday Summer Fun program, which is, of course, going on right now and will be going on throughout the summer, so we can plan and prepare for summer activities. If you're interested in becoming or continuing on as a religious education volunteer teacher, mentor, or advisor, contact Reverend Susan, and remember to register all children from birth through high school for children and youth religious education. And again, Reverend Susan will be available in the social hall at the religious education table after the service. So on Saturday, June the 29th at 10 a.m., I think there's something on the screen. Yes, will be the National Poor People's and Low Wage Workers Assembly and Moral March on Washington, D.C. and to the polls. The Charlottesville Clergy Collective is working on getting several buses to transport people to Washington. Reverend Susan is working to coordinate this with them, and she's part of the Clergy Collective. See her again at the religious education table after the service if you are interested in riding the bus, or see our website and look under calendar for June the 29th for more details and for an opportunity to sign up to get a bus ride on the 29th. Today, as you can see, is a food sharing Sunday here at UUCville, and anyone here in the sanctuary who would like to pick up items from the bounty this morning, you are most invited to remain in the sanctuary after the service, and please take what you need. Are you new to the UU congregation of Charlottesville? If you are, please join us next Sunday following the service for our monthly newcomer circle. join Reverend Tim, he's a pretty good guy, and several lay leaders for 30 minutes of relaxed. Did I hear a dissent out there? I hope not. For 30 minutes of relaxed conversation. No sign up or pre-registration is required. Just come to the service and then grab a cup of coffee and join us for the newcomer circle. It's a good time. And speaking of the membership committee, last evening, that committee held a potluck here at the church for new members, and we had a fabulous, fabulous time. Many thanks to the membership committee for their work in hosting the potluck, and thanks to all who attended. We had such a good time, and these potlucks will certainly continue. And as I said before, please join us for coffee and conversation in the social hall after the service. So our call to worship this morning is adapted from Lynn Cox. She says, "Come into this time and place. Come if you find yourself on a journey of surprise and wonder. Come if you enter this place as an act of liberation. Come if you seek a life of mindfulness and a place to test your thoughts. Come if you bring hearts of all kinds, heavy hearts, hearts broken open, hearts full of love to share. Come if you seek courage, or if you have more courage than you realize." We begin our shared journey again, gathering courage, love, mindfulness, and a sense of purpose. This journey will ask much of us. Let us move forward together with love. Let us move forward with appreciation for one another. Let us move forward knowing we are not alone. Whoever you are, whatever your gifts, you are welcome on this journey. As our service begins, I'd now like to invite Meg Dunham to light the flame of our chalice this morning. And please join me in saying the unison chalice lighting words, which will appear on the screen. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life that we share together. And now let's do our hand motions and the words that go along with them. We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the Church of the Open Minds. This is the Church of the Helping Hands. This is the Church of the Loving Hearts. I now invite you to rise in body or spirit. Please join in singing hymn number 295, Sing Out Praises for the Journey. The lyrics will be on the screen. Please rise. They're also in the gray hymnal.
Sing out praises
You may be seated. Today, as I'm sure you all know, is Father's Day, and I wanted to share some prayerful words with you from Kristen Grassel Schmidt. For all who have warm and loving relationships with their fathers, father figures, and children, we give thanks. For those who, for whatever reason, didn't know their fathers, we remember and acknowledge that this can be a challenging day. And for those whose relationships with their fathers or their children were or are painful, complicated, we offer our love and support. This Father's Day, we lift up our gratitude for all the kinds of fathers and for all kinds of fathering, and for the amazing ways fatherly love, wherever it comes from, can enrich our lives and bring us joy. Amen. We are an interconnected community that cares for one another. Part of how we embody this care is by making time each week to share the joys and sorrows we hold in our hearts. And now, friends, as is our practice, you are invited to come forward now and place a glass stone in the communal bowl of water as a symbolic act of each being held by the larger love that holds us all. Those online may type their joys or sorrows into the chat. Ellen Longmore from our pastoral care team will also come forward to help hold the space. Ellen will be available for a few minutes after the service in the back corner of the sanctuary, right back there. If you are in need of pastoral support, or maybe you just need someone this morning to listen for a few minutes. Those joining us online who are in need of pastoral support can contact the pastoral care team at pastoral@uucharlottesville.org. So let us now begin our ritual of joys and sorrows. Friends, this community offers its love and support to what is closest to our hearts. Another way we show our care for one another is in sharing our financial gifts with our community and with our congregation. The Social Action Collection for the month of June is being taken for Partner for Mental Health, whose mission is to help people experiencing mental illness and substance use disorder in the greater Charlottesville area to live self-directed lives in their home communities. Partner for Mental Health provides intensive, flexible, and comprehensive assistance to people living with mental illness so that they may meet their recovery goals. Rachel, will you please show us the social action slide for giving for those who would now like to make a donation to Partner for Mental Health? In addition to giving online, if you would like to give today with cash or check, please locate one of the Social Action Collection envelopes. They should be scattered pretty well around the pews. Yep, JJ's holding one up. And place your offering in that envelope and then drop it into the collection plate. Now, along with our weekly social action collections, each week we also invite everyone into the spiritual practice of generosity by giving to support the ministry of this congregation. Through your pledges and with the weekly Sunday morning offering, together, our financial gifts and support sustain us. This is our shared ministry. During the music that follows, you may choose to make your Sunday morning offering by using the text address or going to our website. And again, here in the sanctuary, you may place cash or checks just in the plate is fine as they are passed. So now, friends, let us now dedicate all of the many gifts we share with one another by saying, we accept your gifts with gratitude. May we use them wisely for the highest good. As always, friends, thank you so very much for your generosity. So today is one of my favorite services that we do in Unitarian Universalism. This is a service where I invite two members of our congregation to come up to the pulpit and tell us their spiritual journey story. And I will email them usually a few kind of questions, very general kinds of things, just to help sort of prompt some thinking and get them going. But I have to say, this is just listening to Unitarian Universalists share their story is just one of the great joys and privileges of being a minister. So often when folks are first coming to our congregation, they're chatting with me, they'll tell me a little bit of their story. And it's just so wonderful to hear the richness of each of your journeys, but also to hear the echoes that they all have with one another. And it's always just such a wonderful thing to experience. So this morning, we are going to hear from two members of our congregation, Meg Dunham and Keith McGlamory, and we are going to begin with Meg. So Meg, please come on up.
Thank you so much for inviting me to do this. When Tim asked me to share my spiritual journey, I realized, oh, I can go back and get the one I gave at the Burlington UU. And that was 10 years ago, and I had a different computer. So I couldn't find it. I found the first paragraph. So I'm actually, while my journey is basically the same, I'm going to share a different take on it. I was brought up in the United Church of Christ, a liberal denomination, as a minister's daughter. My dad challenged his parishioners to listen to the experiences of others who were hurting or ignored. He was often shut down for that and was forced out of 3 congregations. The church didn't feel safe to me. It was in a UU service that I had the first of many anxiety attacks. Being a preacher's kid was not emotionally healthy for me. Regardless, with my parents, my youth minister, and my friends, I had a trusted space within and around myself to ponder life and death questions and concerns. My mom introduced me to sacred dance. I first felt a sense of the spiritual through dance. For me, it was another way to express what I couldn't express in words. I later co-led a sacred dance group in college. As a kid, I started enjoying spending time in the woods. I would retreat to the woods when I was upset. As I got older, I would hike to the top of the hill near our home and find an outcropping of rock and sit and write. Once I was in middle school, I started writing poetry and some conversational writing in which I wrote to God as if I was talking with a friend. By high school, I was excited to participate in our church youth group and go on retreats. I loved the chance to intentionally reflect on my inner life and to feel affirmed by friends, to be outdoors, to connect with others as well as the earth. And there was a week of church camp every summer with kids from all over Massachusetts. At camp, I felt like I belonged. I felt love and what I called and still do call God, a creative, compassionate spirit. I attended Northfield Mount Hermon High School. I had classmates from all over the world, from different traditions and cultures. At NMH, we were required to take religion classes. We had classes in creativity, concepts of God, global ethics. I even had a geometry teacher, Jim Kamens, who shared with me, knowing I was interested in religion, Pascal's wager for the belief in God. That has stayed with me ever since. What I loved about it was that it allows for the possibility that there is no God or that there is a God, and that we have a choice as to whether we believe in God or not. I think that was when I first felt that science, logic, and faith can work together. NMH graded us on our class participation. I was always an A student and I wanted to stay an A student. So we were encouraged to ask questions and give our opinions, and I was sure to do that. As a result, I became more comfortable speaking up and sometimes challenging what the teacher was presenting. I attended West Virginia Wesleyan College, majoring in religion and sociology. It was there that I first encountered Christian evangelicals. I had classmates who told me that I had to accept Jesus as my savior, that Jesus died for my sins and was resurrected so that I could be saved. Otherwise, I would go to hell. None of this made any sense to me and sounded more frightening than inspiring. As I think back on it, it was during that time that I formed my Unitarian Universalist beliefs without even knowing that's what they were. I was able to verbalize my belief that if, and this is my sermon part, okay, that if there is a God and something like heaven, that everyone experiences heaven when they die. I believe that if there is a God, anyone who is at all evil, who murders, rapes, or otherwise seriously harms another, is likely living in their own hell. And that if not in this life, then once they die, that they will feel embraced by a loving, compassionate presence, so all-encompassing that they are able to experience whatever heaven might be. I believe in a God that is all-loving and far more able to understand and heal a broken spirit than I ever could. It goes against what I believe about God to imagine that God would require the horrific death by crucifixion of one of God's creatures, Jesus, to pay for the sins of others. No loving parent would ever require such a thing. The resurrection to me is more about people who knew Jesus finding a source of hope inside and beyond themselves. My faith does not require an empty tomb. It requires an open heart. I went on to seminary with the goal of becoming a hospital or college chaplain. I appreciated the interfaith aspect of seminary, attending classes with people of many different faiths, even one UU. What I loved most about seminary was my internship at a federated UCC UU church and clinical pastoral education. Clinical pastoral education introduced me to the sacredness of being fully present with others and holding space for them with compassion and respect and without judgment. CPE has served me well in my career as a family services worker in the child protection field, and now as part of our pastoral care team. One of my favorite classes in seminary was theokinetics. This was at the Pacific School of Religion, so in Berkeley. Theokinetics is the study of theology through movement. It was through that class that I gained a fuller understanding of prayer. The professor had us consider the root words of theological concepts. He would then have us move or dance, embody the understanding of the word given its linguistic root. For example, the Latin root for prayer is the same as the root for precarious, meaning unstable, shaky, wavering. Through movement, I came to experience prayer as acknowledging and being with feeling unsafe, unstable, and trying to find balance, centering, clarity. Once I moved to Vermont, I joined the First UU Society of Burlington and found a spiritual home. I didn't have to translate hymns or readings to better align with my theology. I was challenged to think and expand my idea of compassion. I love that in the UU, we are encouraged to continually and responsibly search for truth and meaning, that we are encouraged to grow spiritually and to respect the inherent worth and dignity of all, and to draw wisdom from other traditions. This is what I have believed in all my life. This is how my parents raised me. This is the faith I want to continue to nurture. Like my high school experience, as a UU, I am encouraged to speak up. Through the covenant groups I have been in, the growth is in the exploring. To me, being spiritual is paying attention with all my senses, paying attention to people in my community, being aware of and respecting other cultures, appreciating other cultures. It means being awake to the natural world around me, like my dog is on a walk in the woods. It means connecting with others, learning, playing, and simply being present. I feel at home as a UU and here at UU Seville. UU Seville has been through difficult times and faced those challenges. That is real. I know that I can be real here. I can be myself. Even though I am prone to anxiety, I know that if I am anxious here, that is okay. I will still be accepted regardless of whether I am feeling ill at ease or unsteady, or if I am feeling brave or angry. As a UU, I am inspired to learn, to do better in terms of respecting others. I feel safe emotionally, while challenged personally. UU Seville is large enough in terms of numbers that we can share the load, and small enough that you can, over time, get to know most folks. At UU Seville, I feel needed, appreciated, loved, and welcome. I feel like I belong. I feel at home.
Good morning. I would like to begin by thanking all of you who have reached out to Sammy and me to welcome us into this congregation. We are reminded each week of the reason we feel we belong here. As we repeat the words, this is a church of open minds. This is a church of helping hands. This is a church of loving hearts. Open minds. I assume it will not surprise you that in my experience, open minds is not a concept accepted by Baptists. My earliest memory of religion relates to the concept of the age of accountability. For most fundamentalist Protestants, the term is not tied to a specific age, but is defined as the time when a child comes to understand that they have sinned against God and deserve a punishment for their sins. However, a specific age is included in the definition in most other Protestant religions. It is generally thought to be around the age of 13, similar to the Jewish tradition. I wasn't mature for my age, precocious, or particularly self-aware. However, in a Baptist church in Tulsa, Oklahoma, at the age of 7, I was told by adults that I was old enough to understand when I sinned and understand that I should be punished. The consequence of sinning was that if I died, I wouldn't go to heaven, but would go to hell and burn there forever. I think a Baptist must have been the source of the phrase scaring the hell out of someone. The formula for salvation from hell was relatively simple. In fact, simple enough for a 7-year-old. I could be saved by walking alone down the aisle of the church one Sunday morning. Then, standing in front of the people in the church, I would admit that I was a sinner and that I accepted Jesus Christ as my Savior. I followed those instructions and was baptized the next Sunday in the baptistry at the front of the church. Thus, I was born again, just shy of 8 years after my physical birth. God, I was taught, knew my every action and, even more frightening, my every thought. I may not have had God in my heart for much of my childhood, but he was frequently in my mind and on my mind. It was so easy to sin and to displease God. I was fearful of him and kept silently repeating prayers for forgiveness. Let me say that although I am appalled and at some level deeply resentful of the indoctrination and the installation of fear to which I was subjected, it should be remembered that parents were subject to the same indoctrination. A parent's worst nightmare would be to lose a child and be tormented by the possibility that the child had not been, quote, saved. On a much happier note, contrast what I experienced as a child in a fundamental church with the religious education programs here at UUCville. I've had coffee with several of you, but after one of my first visits to UUCville, Chris Little invited me to have coffee. By the way, Reverend Tim confirmed for me my suspicion that UUers consider coffee to be sacramental. Chris shared a lot of information about UUCville with me, but the thing that most caught my attention was his description of the religious education programs for children and youths. Clearly, the parents in this congregation didn't want their children to be filled with guilt and shame. Thanks to the love, concern, sensitivity, thoughtfulness, and hard work of many wonderful people in this congregation, rather than being indoctrinated, our young people are accompanied and guided into the exploration of some of life's great issues. In the context of a world of rapid change and outside negative influences, many of which are now transmitted by our technology, learning how to be a moral person, a you can live with, is mission critical for our children and youths. Through high school, I occasionally asked questions about why God let good people suffer, or why a murderer who was, quote, born again would go to heaven, but a poor person in a remote part of the world who didn't hear the gospel message would go to hell. There is always the same answer to those and any other troubling questions. It is not for us to know the mind of God or to question his infinite wisdom. And by the way, not accepting that answer was itself a sin. If you saw any stories about the National Southern Baptist Convention this past week, you know that an open mind remains a foreign and even threatening concept for Baptists. I'm going to talk about helping hands last, but let me mention on Loving Hearts, when Sammy and I began attending UUCville, we experienced immense joy and inspiration in the music. Whether classical, jazz, contemporary, or traditional, the music opened our hearts to the messages in the rest of the service. As I'm sure you would all agree, Scott DeVoe and the choir are a very special part of this congregation's ministry. I was impressed by what I heard from the pulpit and in conversations with other congregants, and by the things I learned as I began to read multiple books by and about UUers, both laymen and clergy. I especially welcomed the lack of creeds and dogma. Sammy and I are surrogate grandparents for a beautiful human being who happens to be a trans woman. The open arms extended by people in this congregation to LGBTQ+ forged another link between us and this church. It is a joy to experience a religion so open and free in which people of diverse backgrounds, religiously and culturally, can come together in a beloved community. I described being born again, but I want to mention a few things about my deconversion. By the way, I looked it up and there is such a word. In my freshman year in college, in a zoology course, the teaching assistant asked for a show of hands of those who believed in evolution. Out of 30 or so students, I was the only one who didn't raise my hand. I didn't understand why I was so out of sync with my classmates and spent time researching Darwin and evolutionary theory at the library that evening. It was the first significant tremor in my closed view of life. Additional tremors followed and multiplied, culminating in a conversation at the end of my junior year with my roommate, Mike, a graduating senior heading to seminary to prepare for becoming a Methodist minister. We sat at the kitchen table in our small apartment discussing his departure. In the course of an hour and a half, we surprisingly found ourselves in the middle of discussion, explanation, polite argument, and significant disagreement as I described my views on Christianity. For the first time, I articulated my view that many of the biblical stories, particularly those relating to the creation of human beings, the creation of heaven and hell, and the circumstances of Jesus' birth, death, and resurrection, were the stuff of myths that were not dissimilar from the creation myths of the Egyptians, the ancient Romans, and other pre-Christian religions. By the end of that conversation, I had become fully aware that I no longer believed in God or in the divinity of Jesus. After 14 years, I had deconverted from being, quote, born again. I now was free from the restraints that had prevented me from fully experiencing an open mind and loving heart. Our Helping Hands, our website states that Unitarian Universalists have a legacy of deeds, not creeds. The commitment of time and resources of members of UUCville to social justice projects with, it should be noted, major efforts and leadership from women are many of the helping hands our UUCville community extends to the larger Charlottesville community. I close with a meditation that reminds us of what community requires of us. The meditation is written by Stephen Charleston, a fellow Oklahoman, elder of the Choctaw Nation, and retired Episcopal bishop. It's called I Will Not Stop Caring. I will not stop caring, whatever the cost. I will not cease loving, no matter the consequences. The political winds may howl above me, scattering people like leaves in a storm, but I will hold fast to the common ground, the wisdom that once formed us. Difference is not a crime. Diversity is not a threat. Disagreement is not a failure. Community requires of me what it requires of others, a commitment to share in the process of justice. There are no expendable human beings in that process, only a sacrifice of privilege. For the sake of the many, I will not stop caring for the few. Thanks.
See what I mean? That right there, friends, that is why I became a Unitarian Universalist. You can come into a UU congregation like this one and be you. You can tell your story. I have one rule when I send out those questions. I don't say, oh yeah, don't talk about this. I say, the only requirement is be yourself. You don't have to change your story. You don't have to say the magic words. You don't have to avoid this. Just be you. That's what we ask. That's what you can do as a Unitarian Universalist. So I will add that after listening to these two, that I'm now going to have them preach next Sunday and the Sunday after that, the Sunday after that. And so you guys won't see me for, well, no, I'm just kidding. but that was great. Thank you, Meg, and thank you, Keith. That was very, very, very wonderful. And it is always the case. I learned and was so touched by your stories and by your journeys. And so I hope that many of you are now like, yeah, I'm ready for a turn. So if you want to share your story sometime, let me know. So I'd be delighted to have you step up here and tell us more about you and about the journey that you've been on. So this service right here, this experience, I often will say this to congregations, not only is this why I became a UU, but this right here is Unitarian Universalism at its best. It really, really is. We have other bests, but this right here is just one of many things that is so special about our tradition. I'm not saying it makes us better than others. We don't roll that way. This right here, where you can just get up and be you. Say, I don't know, or say, I believe in God. I don't, I'm not sure. I understand it this way or not. That's all wonderful and acceptable and joyful. That's what makes Unitarian Universalism so special. All right, enough about me and about you. Let's rise now in body or spirit. Let's join and close and join in singing Blue Boat Home. Scott's going to accompany the video, which will have Peter Mayer, who was, of course, the original singer and composer of Blue Boat Home, and beautiful visuals. So please rise. You can look in the teal hymnal, but the words will also be on the screen. Please rise.
Standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel. And the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I fly the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. Wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my
Beautiful. Keith, will you extinguish the chalice, please? Friends, as we make our journeys of the Spirit, may we always, always share our amazing stories. May we see our different paths as blessings and opportunities to learn and to grow. May we see our shared values as invitations to journey together and to build a better world. And as we sail the starry seas, may our hearts always be filled with joy and gratitude for these, our ship's companions, and for this marvelous, marvelous planet that is our beautiful blue boat home. Friends, be well, take very good care of yourselves, of each other, and of this world. Go in peace, go in love, journey with kindness. Blessed be.